Anthony, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger.
How are you?
Shane.
Well, Anthony, how are things?
Sean is saying he makes Kerry slight favourites.
Hey.
No, the bookmakers are not. It's like having a clue. They're basically saying you take your pick.
Yeah,
The replay is scheduled for Saturday fortnight, so we could be having a month of Dublin Kerry if the game's a draw.
It's going to be mightily close, I think. We can get into the reasons why and not, but I think it's I don't know. I'm not leaning either way at the moment. I think it's going to be absolutely to the wire. Sure, it'll be fantastic.
I think anyone who predicts it confidently either way is lying to themselves.
I think so. Yeah. Because they both obviously have enormous strengths, but there's weaknesses and there's frailties there as well that can be got at.
Well, let's talk about the Dubs and their weaknesses and frailties. What did Monaghan do that caused them so much difficulty? Or was it the slightly stereotypical multiple personality Dublin that we've seen, where for whatever reason they're a bit passive for ages, like they were against Roscommon, for example? Actually, you guys have the ball there, we don't mind. And then all of a sudden, oh shit, we've got to play. It felt like they got that out of their system in the second half in the quarterfinal, but they hadn't.
Yeah. Well, you have to give, as you say, you have to give Monaghan massive credit, right? So Monaghan brought a control to the game, I think, which they have done for large parts of the year. There's a self-confidence there within that Monaghan squad that they're not worried about, whether they go a few points down or whatever it is. They know they'll be in the game towards the end of the game. So I think a couple of things happened. I think Scully took a knock early doors. If you see him, he was down, and I don't think he recovered well from it. Then he gets the black card, and then they basically just get him out of there as quick as they could as soon as they bring him in. So Kilkenny, with that card, was played early. I think Pasquale, after the highs, and you see this a lot, when a fella shoots the lights out one week, and then everyone's like, oh, that's it. He's the man now. And the most difficult thing then is to actually go and follow it up. And unfortunately for him, he was well marshalled and he had a bit of a disaster day. So Costello led the line unbelievably well for Dublin. I still think there's question marks. There has been question marks over that forward sector. Con is doing what he does. Mannion isn't hitting the same kind of levels that he was of the last number of years. He hasn't looked the same type of player, popping up every now and again. And I just don't think there's that same fluidity that they have. Don't think there's that same threat. I know we've spoken about this before, but the going to the well, the big boys like the McCarthy's, McCaffrey coming on and doing what he needs to do.
Fenton's second half performance was
Fenton quiet first half. I thought he was really well marshalled. I thought Mohan did an excellent job for a guy who would usually be kind of pigeonholed into that full forward role. I think he did a great job coming out around the middle. And Monaghan upset Dublin. I think Monaghan basically said, well, we'll go and take your big weapons away from you and see what else you have. And Monaghan brought what they brought, which is that speed and that quickness of transition. And I think, we'll get to Monaghan in a minute, but I think, the forward line, and if you're Kerry, you're sitting there looking at that Dublin forward line, you're saying, okay, we know what we have to do. We know the fellas that we need to take out. And then can we restrict those 3 or 4 subs who come on? Can we curtail them as well? And can we make sure that in those 62 or 63rd minute to the 73rd or 74th minute that we're not going to concede certainly 1-6 or 1-7, but we're only going to concede a point or two. Yeah. That's the winning of the game. And we know Dublin do that squeeze, last 5 minutes of the first half, certainly the first 5 minutes of the game, those last 5, and then the first 10 minutes of that second half. And Monaghan did really well in that.
Brilliantly well.
Yeah, really well, because the squeeze was on. Yeah. You could see it. But we spoke about it last week. Begging was massively important. Yeah. And in that moment where the game goes from, I think it was 12-11, 13-12, and around 57, 58 minutes to 62, 63 minutes, there's a spell there, the O'Hanlon free against them is it's really harsh, you know. Like, I mean, I know people are saying he touched it on the ground. I think it's coming up to him. I think it's just one of those, you can take a still on it. I think in the game, he's possibly fouled on the sideline anyway. When he gets the ball, he was dragged back by Gannon, I felt. But you could see the squeeze coming from Dublin, and they obviously focused, and they realised at that time, this is the game here. If we can get 2 to 3 up, we will do it. And it literally was, because it went from a draw 1, 2, 3 just like a light, and Monaghan never really recovered from that. Now I know McCarran got a score, but that was the game there, and Dublin recognised those things, much the same as Kerry did, by the way. You know, when they and that is it. And it's, you know, and I feel sorry for referees in the sense, because you can imagine the roaring and shouting. You could see it from Con and Costello calling lads up. There's a heightened level. It's even more heightened. You know, there's tension, and you're just watching everything. There's bodies everywhere. There's things going on all over the pitch, and you know, Beggan was a cool head, but still, ultimately, that's where Dublin, I think, won the game.
The referee thing is an interesting one, because when I was in the stadium on Saturday, look, obviously I'm biased. I'm from Monaghan. I was disappointed with a few. I know. I never talk about it, but I was disappointed with a few of Sean Herson's decisions. Now, when I watched the Sunday game back, I will say, I came back onto Herson's side for a few of them, and I was like, okay, fair enough. But there was one give it against Killian Lavelle towards the end of the first half, which I thought was a phantom free, to be honest. Someone made that point on Twitter as well. That it was an off the ball. I just wasn't sure what it was for, and they scored that one. And then the Conor O'Callaghan one as well, where he wins a free for slipping almost. I thought there was tackling from Conor McCarthy that looked fair to me, and it looked like he slipped and then got the free. So I just wasn't sure. But how did he perform overall?
Yeah, I thought, like, you know, I was fairly critical as well, because I think in the moment, but I actually went back again. I watched it 3 times. Like, there's one where Hughes gets a great hand in on O'Dell at that vital period. Now he leaves his kind of hand in. The ball has skidded away, and there's 2 Monaghan guys in front. There's always going to be those. But honestly, the games are so close now, and we've been speaking about this for the last number of months, that a point or two in those vital times, whether it's a handy enough free in the first 5 or 6 minutes, or it's in that melting pot in the last 2 or 3, they just matter. You know, they matter. They're big calls, you know, and when it comes to it, you know, he's going to get some right, some wrong. You would hope that it's obviously more right than wrong. I think he did a good job. I think he allowed it to flow. The conditions, obviously, where, you know, hands in, fellas slipping all over the place. It's a tricky game. It's a tricky game to call. But like, if I was Monaghan, I would have felt hard done by, especially at that 58 to 63, 64 minutes where there's mayhem going on.
Does the geography of a referee matter? I'm not making the point for 1 second that because Sean Herson is from Tyrone, he shouldn't necessarily be refereeing that game, but like, could you pick a referee from outside the province?
I would have thought that you'd have preferred a referee from Ulster who understood Ulster.
See, there's that argument as well.
He knows the players and goes, he didn't mean that, because I like, there was some Monaghan people around us who didn't like the fact that it was a Tyrone referee, but like, Jesus, I don't know.
No, I'm saying that I think Herson's a brilliant referee. Like, he did go in Mayo. He's actually a really, really good referee overall, generally speaking. And I'm not saying for a second him being from Tyrone.
As a neutral, I thought the refereing was totally fine, and actually relatively good compared to some of the referees.
There was no howlers. I'll give you that. There's no howlers.
No. I think Monaghan will. I think Monaghan will look back and realise that was by far their best opportunity to get into an All-Ireland final. By far.
I think in a way they've done the rest of the country a favour by making Dublin seem like they're not a super team anymore. The Dublin team that won all the All-Irelands, that were harvesting them, is gone. And now they're a team who are still very good, and who obviously you need to be absolutely sensational to beat, but they're very beatable now for teams who have a game plan, who have athleticism, and who are just a bit more aggressive.
Yeah, I wouldn't say very beatable. They're beatable. You know, but it's that
ends up being a 7-point game.
Correct.
It's actually a 2-point game.
Correct.
Really.
And I think it's the going to the well. Like, you know, people are speaking about James McCarthy, but it's Cluxton, it's a number of others, it's McCaffrey, it's a number of others, even John Small. I'm not putting John in that same camp, he's a lot younger, say, than some of them, but it's the going to the well once more. It's having that hurt or having that drive. People don't realise it, you know, you're talking about McManus, when you're standing at the bottom of the mountain again and you're going, I have to get back up there. It's the physical, it's the mental battle much more than the physical battle. battle that matters. You know, McCarthy has had injuries over the last while, and you look what he has done to get back into probably Player of the Year type shape. So it's that drive, Ger, and I think that Dublin team will be a very different Dublin team next year. I think it'll be a very, very different Dublin team. So this is their last hurrah to a large extent, and they're big personalities, those guys. You know, there's big personalities that are going to exit that dressing room. I think Monaghan will kick themselves. I would not have started McManus. I wouldn't have started him. I know how important it was probably for him. Himself and Vinnie Curry have soldiered together. I would imagine there was a lot of pressure on. But I think if you look at the performance, I think they could have managed the first 40-45 minutes in much the same way without him, right? Maybe there would have been 1 or 2 points in more of a deficit. But I think if you really go back over his performance again, from minute 50 he comes alive because the game just starts to open. He comes alive. Remember that great score? He comes around on his right foot. If you watch, can't remember who's with him. I think Fitzsimons maybe, but like he's watching it, and even though he knows it's going to happen, he just can't get around to tag him. And in that period, imagine having him coming in fresh. Now he's already after running for 50 minutes. Like he's already after been moving, chasing, harrying. You know, there's a lot of coming out of the legs.
I think himself and McCarron, ball back in his own half back line at one point. I was like, oh geez, this is amazing.
Yeah. So I thought himself and McCarron to come on at 50 minutes. Now all of a sudden you're going, okay, wow, that's a double threat coming in. I think they probably needed to back themselves a bit more to say, no, we can stick in with this, then we can bring the big guns on.
That's hard though, because we'd seen what the Dubs did in the second half in the quarterfinal, and you know there was the foregone conclusion narrative that I thought, you know, it wasn't completely ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. Foregone conclusion. Neither of those semi-finals were foregone conclusions.
But we spoke about it last week about what Monaghan would bring, and you know, I think Monaghan with McCarthy, who's been excellent, you know, and Carl O'Connell, like unbelievable year. So I just think they can feel hard. I think they will look back. I think Vinny will probably have nightmares, and I'd say there was angst about whether I should start him or not, because he is that. Once you bring him in, he's going to cause mayhem here. He will cause mayhem. He'll attract 2 to 3, and when you're tired,
one of the reasons why I would sit down all winter and I would like make sure that he comes back next year, because I do feel like Monaghan have learned a lot from this year. It's the first year of a new management team, and they've bedded in a load of young players, and they do have really good young players coming through. Like, it feels like Monaghan could be here for a while if they could keep the band together in the way the Dublin got the band back together.
Absolutely.
Some complaining from other Monaghan people who are being less I don't know what the word is, diplomatic than Shane this morning. McManus was fouled 3 times and then done for overcarrying. Moen was done for a high knee, all in the last 5 minutes. Points came from both. The Moen free, I've never in 30 years watching football seen a foul given for this.
The high knee, it was I actually agree. I think the same one as the Kerry goalkeeper, Shane Ryan. I think that neither of them were fouls. Like, if you can't jump and raise your knee when you're trying to catch a ball,
and raise your knee, you can't, because you've got a duty of care to the player. Like, you do have a duty. Either we care about this stuff or we don't care about this stuff.
Neither of the incidents were particularly dangerous.
Well, there was a head injury, and he wasn't taken off for a head injury either. You're kind of
you're taught as a kid, when you go up, you bring your knee up to protect yourself.
Really, you're bringing your knee up. You were taught that in Meath.
Yeah, you are.
You're not really.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, this is your chance to cream your man. Like, I know that's what the point of this is.
Yeah, I don't think I'm with Shane. I think the Ryan one was like he was going up and he turned his hip. McGuigan probably should have known it was coming and put the brakes on, to be honest.
Yeah, possibly.
You know, look, I don't think the referee was the winning and the losing of it. I think there was an opportunity, but to go back to Dublin for a second, because they do deserve massive kudos for that last 7 or 8 minutes where they smelt blood, and they just went we squeezed the living daylights out of them here. And when you have Con and Costello and these lads really squeezing you, Lee Gannon coming in, Fenton came of age. I thought he was mad, but then all of a sudden he came up with some really big moments. The knee
slide point is one of the most athletic things I've seen. It was Novak Djokovic style, weird ability to do stuff, and you're like, Clifford did something similar. There was like no room to get a shot off, but
First
he
half.
just got one off in anger, even though Chrissy McCaig was like dry riding him. And it was the exact same from there's a defender there, and I'm on my knees, and I just get up and I straight away I kick it. And like, wow, that was incredible. And it's one of those things, because he's such a totemic figure, that it does seem to count double.
I think it does, and of course, when it does, because you've having Marshall so well for so long, and all of a sudden you're just like, you know, he just gets us in the end. And McCaffrey as well, coming in and sticking the ball over the bar, like he was kind of smiling to himself as if to say, I didn't expect that myself. But like, I mean, it's just all of those added things, and that's what you need. We've spoken about this. You need that impact. It's a massive thing. I don't think Derry had that impact. You need that impact. It's like, you know, people say, it's a 20-man game. It is absolutely a 23-man game now.
McGrogan getting injured in the manner in which he was scoring the point, like from Derry's perspective, that takes away an ability, you know, and they don't. The razor thin margin from Derry's perspective, it's so tight that they can't afford that. But just to go back to the Dubs, right, the bits that Monaghan did cause them difficulty, not a million miles away from the difficulty that Derry caused Kerry, where there's these pockets of space in between the lines of defence, where if you have a shooter in there who is able to kick, and if Kerry have enough of them, they'll be able to kick. So the teams match up quite well in terms of, I think this could be a 118 to 116 final.
It could be. Well, you see, teams are starting to work out that, okay, if the quick early ball isn't on in space, well then it's all about, as you say, managing to get behind that first bank of defenders. Because the second bank, if you're doing what you should be doing, is the old days where, you know, especially against a blanket defence, what we'll do is we'll pull players out of there and we'll try to create space in front. Now what teams do is they put loads of players in there, but they pin you right up against the end line, so they force your full backs to go right in. And we spoke about this, remember a few weeks about Mayo, and when they had O'Shea in there, and then when they took him out, they lost all that threat. And we spoke about Mohan maybe staying in there and being a focal point. Once you get in behind, if you have runners coming at angles and the right guys coming at space, well then it's a pop pass and you should get your shots off. And that's where you saw most of the success. Now, Kerry will be able to do that, most certainly. I think you know, it's look, you're trying to really pick holes, and you're looking at incidents. The two games, the four teams were of top quality. Like, you have to say that. Like, it was absolutely, like, Monaghan deserved massive credit, Derry deserved massive credit. Like, the first half of the Derry-Kerry game, it was just like, this is ridiculous here. Like, just the score, the point taking, the shooting, the athleticism, the tracking, like, absolutely
there's
everything.
There's also the ingenuity in coaching in Gaelic games at the moment. So Vinnie Corey, first year manager, like Kieran Meena obviously comes in difficult circumstances in Derry. Davy Burke with his game plan against Dublin as well in first year as common manager. There are new ideas coming in as to how teams beat.
But it annoys me so much when people saying, you know, football, it needs to change. It's got to, you know, it's like you're saying, you need to understand the game of chess that's happening, and like, everyone wants a shootout and all those, but like, what is wrong with what was played over the weekend? Like, you know, you're watching. If you don't want to watch where the ball is, watch what's going on inside. Watch the game. Like, I mean, Jesus, I've watched soccer games and I've fallen asleep and woken back up again, and the ball's still in the same area. Like, you know, tapping around the place, mass defences, park the bus. You know, this is the game, and what's happening is, again, as you say, the ingenuity of, okay, how do we break that down? How do we actually manage to get our scores when that's happening and create space and do all the different things, and there's no need to change it. There's no need to put new rules in that will have unintended consequences. Just let the teams and the management teams work it out, because we are living in an era where they're as fit, strong, athletic, skillful as they've ever been. And like, I mean, you know, I was sitting watching the game with my two girls, and I was just saying, I said, look at that 14. I said, he is the greatest player I said I've ever seen put on a football jersey. Just watch the way he moves, watch everything he does. And like, Chrissy McCaig is an unbelievable defender. And, you know, he's still going this morning, Jesus, how many did I concede off him?
Yeah.
it was the same as my sister was watching the game, and she wouldn't be massively into Gaelic football, but she was asking us during the Kerry-Derry game yesterday, so who's the main guys for each of these teams? And I was kind of saying, well, Shane McGuigan for Derry, David Clifford for Kerry, and literally as soon as I said it, so she was watching 14 for Kerry, keeping an eye on him. As soon as it was that score in the first half, just when he had no space to kick it off, and just like if you're someone who doesn't know Gaelic football, you can see he plays the game differently.
The small things he does, even by the way, from a defensive point of view, because I thought McCaig was very smart. McCaig said, right, I'm going to bring you down here a few times, and he brought him right down. But there was one where he gets it, and I can't remember who comes to him, I think, but he does a little bounce. He knows if he bounces it straight, he's going to go straight into the defender, but he manages to bounce it away and outside of his hand and creates a space as he then goes and launches it over his left foot. There's sometimes as a defender, I remember marking Johnny Doyle one year in 2007, and Doyle was absolutely tearing it up. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm having nightmares the night before, going, what? At 6 I was thinking, if I can keep this guy to less than 8, I think I've done a pretty good job.
I'd say Derry were probably pretty happy that he didn't get double figures, because it kept him in the game right to the end, and Derry did almost everything correct.
Well, the question, I suppose, was, and I think again it's the scenario of the what ifs. And I'll pose to both of you, because I was thinking it during the game. So I've been that soldier in the sense of, you're thinking, right, do I need help, or am I going to just are they going to trust me that I continue to go on this journey here? Because McCaig was under pressure.
He got the booking in the first half,
yeah, and was under pressure, and you could see it. I don't think he was ever going to get sent off, because it was mostly just tackling and hands in. So, Cork, if you remember, have always brought someone like a Powter back to try to double up with Clifford. I thought Derry could have done that, and because I think the rest of the pieces for Kerry in the jigsaw were pretty blunt. The rest of Guinea wasn't having a good game. Spillane was definitely not having a good game. So the rest of the forward unit, you're not going to get the same from Monaghan. You're not going to get the same. So you're kind of going, right, are these lads really going to hurt me, or where is the main pain? McCluskey was doing a great job on Paddy. So I honestly think they should have said, we need to double up on him here. And I think by virtue of the fact that they didn't, because Seanie O'Shea wasn't in it in the first half. Now he came into it brilliantly in the second half.
But here's the thing: if you double up, then all of a sudden Seanie is kicking 4 points in the first half, and you're like, well, we've kept Clifford to 3.
I know, but I think you can bring someone from somewhere else.
Right.
If you get
one of the half forwards.
Yeah, you can bring someone from somewhere else. I think Dublin will say to themselves, we're going to double up.
Is the way to beat these two teams, sorry, goal chances is something we haven't talked about. Monaghan had, Ryan McInnesby probably will look back at his chance and probably could have passed it across to Stevie O'Hanlon for a certain goal. Derry had goal chances as well. I know that McKinless got their goal, but obviously they conceded to Gavin White straight away afterwards. But if Monaghan and Derry had taken the goal chances that they had, and they got them, first half Monaghan had maybe 2 or 3 goal chances, Dublin had 0.
It just shows you have to, if you get in behind like that, you have to,
against those two teams,
it has to happen. It has to happen. Well, I think there was 4 goal chances in the first 5 minutes of the Derry game, or maybe even 5, and then even McKinless has won in the second half. Now there wasn't a massive amount of options. Terry did really well, because actually, if you look, O'Connor ends up nearly going over the block, and they had the ball cut out across. But yeah, you have to make hay. I think the Clifford thing would be interesting for Dublin. I'd say Dublin were saying, right, we need to put an X on him as much as we possibly can, and then we'll see how the rest of the because I honestly, McCaig is probably one of the best defenders in the country. And he got 8 or 9 off him. And it wasn't like he was kicking free. He won most of the frees himself.
Didn't Mick Fitzsimons go on him last year and do okay, and only concede 5 or 6 from play,
which is pretty good,
I think. Well, somebody has the exact.
Yeah, I think he's a different player to last year, though. I think he is. I think he's stronger. He's more physical. He's dominating you rather than you dominate him.
And Fitzsimons is a year older as well.
Yeah. So
he did well in McManus, though. With McManus was brilliant, but Fitzsimons had a couple of moments where he was pretty good.
Mick Fitzsimons has been playing, really well, top of his game. I think the Stephen O'Brien introduction was massive for Kerry.
Because he was so good, do you start him, or are you now thinking, okay, we have something at last on our bench, so
I don't think you do. I think you're right. I think you need to keep. See, it's that thing that you fall into, and you've seen it so many times before. A fella comes, start him the next day, and he just has a mare, because he's some lads are used to coming into that kind of, like he came in, he won 2 or 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
He got a great score.
Yeah.
Couple of blocks. He made a brilliant block. Lynch was, oh Jesus, I saw him come up the field sometime. And you know what? He comes into the line very, very well. He's very good on the ball. He passes, but I think he was blocked down. He was definitely blocked down twice. He might have even been blocked down 3 times. And it was that spell. You could see McGuigan a couple of times roaring at them, because it was like they abandoned. And I know people are saying McGuigan got a lot of knocks. He did, but they also abandoned getting him the ball.
Yeah.
In those little areas. I think it was McAvoy, McGuigan stepped out from him looking for the ball back out in the pocket. They didn't give it to him. So there was a number of times where Derry, again, they were playing to a very nice set plan that first half, very efficient, and then they kind of got caught in the whole, Jesus, Kerry, you're coming back at us, we need to do something quick.
And we might win this.
Yeah.
We might win this.
Yeah.
That's definitely
white line fever.
And like Kerry had it for years until they eventually got over the line.
Yeah.
Clifford scored 6 last year in the semi-final, including a free and a mark, and I'm fairly sure Meath Tailteann picked him up for the whole thing. It is the last dance for this Dublin team. You would suspect that they're not going to have the same. Who knows? Maybe Desi, if they win, stays on. Maybe Pacquiao won't be part of the team. I don't know nothing about that, but Fitzsimons and Cluxton, and is Mannion back for good? Is Jack McCaffrey back for good? Maybe they are. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just them now. Did I do McCarthy? Suddenly it's just a different group.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is Fenton going to keep coming back at this level? Because he's been at a very, very high level for a very long time. So maybe they will. Maybe they're hungry such that they'll hit the 9 and go for 10 and try and match Henry Shefflin. I don't know, but it feels like it's the last dance.
Feels that way. Yeah, feels that way. And I think some of the things you hear, and of course you can't believe it all, but some of the stuff is that there was a massive surge at the start of the year, and even the Cluxton thing kind of feels like that. They said, listen, we're getting the band back together one last time, and we're going to go out and give it everything, and it does feel like that. I think what it has taken some of them to get back to that level has been a monumental effort, both physically and mentally, and it certainly feels like that. It's hard. It's very, very, very hard. And you can see it even with Kerry. They are at the pin of their collar to win that game. It's not an easy thing to do. It's an absolutely massively difficult thing to do. And it just feels that way, Ger. I don't think that the likes of McCarthy would say, right, I'm ready to rock again next year. That's just my sense.
I feel like the structure and the calendar now probably leads to the likes of McManus and those Dublin players that you mentioned sticking around for a bit longer now, because look, the end of July they have the rest of the summer. The league, Dublin don't necessarily need their top players for the league. They don't use them anyway, so that period at which those top players are needed all of a sudden is drastically cut. So why wouldn't they come back?
But you still have to do. You can't. You just can't in this day and age kind of winter well and come back. You can't do it. You have to do all the training. You have to have it in the tank. And I think you saw it this year.
Playing the games.
No, and I think you saw it this year with Galway. Like Comer and Walsh, we spoke about this. They didn't have that bank of work. Walsh was with Kilmacud. I just think you still need to be there. You still need to be present. You still need to do all that stuff.
What about Meath's victory in the Tailteann Cup?
Yeah. So listen, it's great for the players. It's great for the county in the sense of to get a win in a competition. It's still the second tier competition, so by virtue of winning it, they're the 17th best team in the country.
Tommy might have them at 15 or 14 in the power rankings. We shall see.
Well, it wasn't that long ago we were in the Super 8, but anyway, where we are is where we are. I think it's good for the players. They're a young team. I thought they were bad in the first half, very poor, got a very lucky goal, only kicked 3 points in the first half, so Down probably could have been 1-6-3 at half time, and I think it would have been a very different game. I think Down will look back on it and kind of go, Jesus, what did we do? I think Down very naively ran down the middle in the second half. They narrowed the game completely, which suited Meath. Meath turned them over, but then Meath really started to work the ball well. This idea of we're a kicking team. Meath's best football was played when they were running at angles and running off the shoulder and nice little pop passes and using their strong runners. O'Connor did very, very well when he came on, kicked some great scores, added that bit of pace. Jack Flynn, kicked 4 points from play.
He was, from the very start of the game where his shot comes off the post and Ronan Jones obviously bangs off his leg and goes in for the goal, Jack Flynn just starts laughing, and the whole game when he's getting tackled he gets up and starts smiling. He just was enjoying himself.
Yeah, he just was. Well, he's that type of fella, very, very, massively athletic, a guy who went away and put a massive amount of work into not only his physique but also his playing ability. He plays with Ratoth, he plays, he kicks 50s like he's taking a 21-yard free. He's got a howitzer of a leg on him, but he has really worked on his accuracy, and sometimes they might spray him a bit, so he's really, and he's got his
big
confidence.
lad.
He's a big man and he's well able to motor around. He actually marked McCarthy in the Dublin game, and I thought did pretty well on it, for a fella who's so young. So look, they'll take the positives out of it, but honestly Meath and that squad and the county, we're now at base camp. That's where we are.
Yeah.
So you need to literally go, right lads, that's it. We go on our holiday, whatever, but we're starting next week, because you look at even the conditioning, the strength, the all the different things of the top teams, and you look at some of the Meath players and they still look light, and they need that body of work. So we're at base camp, and really everyone should be dusting themselves down now and saying, okay, that's that box ticked. Now we need to be at the top table again.
Yeah.
And how do we get there?
Look, it'll be interesting to see how much of a benefit they get from having success, and what nourishment that gives the group over the winter. In reality, I think it's like they were the top ranked team by league standing in the competition, and so therefore they should have been favourites, even though we were kind of overrating down maybe a little bit on the basis of their league performances. I'm not sure that a Division 2 team should be in the Tailteann Cup. I think if you were when it was designed, it wasn't 4 teams.
Correct.
Like if Kildare had been in it and won it, I don't know how much of a celebration there would have been, but Kildare could easily have been in it. You would have expected them to win it. So I just am not convinced that Meath winning this is great for the Tailteann Cup the way Westmeath winning it was. Maybe they will celebrate it, I don't know as much. Maybe it'll mean as much to them. Maybe when they'll go off to Mexico on holidays, they'll be like, this is the greatest thing that could have happened.
Look at the impact that Westmeath had from it, drawn with Tyrone, nearly knocking Tyrone out of the championship. Should have probably got something up in Armagh as well.
But we would expect Meath to be putting these, Meath are a first world nation when it comes to Gaelic football.
But the benefit of a trophy as well, they haven't won since 2010.
No, a trophy is important, and it's important to see the joy in the player's face and see them jumping, and that is massively important, and it does gel a group.
So did they have a better year than Kildare now?
I think they will look at it and thinking we had a better year, because at the end of the day you look and there's silverware in the cabinet, but in the cold light of day, if they go back, they'll probably say, well, actually, I tell you what he's had a better year of, O'Rourke and the management team, is that they've had those group of players now for an extended period of time, and they have massively changed. They have changed the way they play. So anyone who looks at the game that they played against Cork in the first round of the league, or the second or third game against Clare, and then looks at yesterday, can see, well, they're two totally different teams.
Playing
they're getting men behind the ball. Yeah, they're getting men behind the ball. They're much more defensively set up. They're much more solid at times. They are transitioning about when they kick the ball. Unfortunately, they don't have fellas around the middle, some people who are accurate enough kickers, and some balls were going out over the end line, were going over sideline, there was balls being misplaced. Actually, I think they need to get that power running, because they've some big men, good runners around the field, and they will develop that. But there is a body of work, Ger, and as I said, this is not bah humbug stuff, but you can't get carried away. You have to realise, okay, we've gone literally, as I said, base camp now, and there's all the boys, there's the big boys up the top, and that's where we need to go to. And much like Kildare, it won't happen in a year. It's going to be a bit of a journey for them. And the thing is the supporters understanding that it's a journey, the county board understanding it's a journey, the players themselves, obviously, and the management team understanding it's a journey. And, I can hear what O'Rourke is saying about the heroes and all that stuff, and that's all great. But, you can't build expectation up too much. This is a body of work that's going to take time, and hopefully they'll get there.